the floor. Nominations require a nominator only. When all nominations have been received and there is no further nomination put forward after 3 calls, a motion to close nominations is requested. This motion requires a mover and a seconder and is voted upon. Suggested resolutions are provided for in the agenda package. And once that is done, all nominees shall signify when asked if they will stand for the position. And when nominations are closed, everyone will have an opportunity to address the membership in order of alphabetical listing of his or her surname. The election will be taken by electronic vote. I understand Director Rang will be able to join us, and it looks like he's up on screen there. So we've got a electronic voting method in play. It's anonymous, and we'll be able to actually make the scrutineer's job a whole lot easier. It tallies for them. An anonymous link is provided on the laptops, which if we do get into it, I'll explain a little bit more about that. Key thing is don't click on it yet, because those will be determined as the nominations are going forward, and then I'll indicate when we're good to go. In terms of Director Rang, who's participating remotely, he'll get a private chat identifying the link. So we'll be able to collect everyone's votes that way. Ballots will be counted. The technology does it for us by the election scrutineers, and the results will be announced by the election chair. So they'll indicate to me the results of those the ballots. In the event there is a tie vote, second ballot will be taken, and if that too is a tie, then a third vote is held. And if there's still a tie after that point in time, an election will be decided from a draw of a hat. The election chair will declare the chair and vice chair following their election or acclamation. And just as a bit of a reminder, there's the new rules that have been put in place by the province regarding the election of officers. So the chair and vice chair positions can serve for only 2 terms in a position. We're okay on that end because both chair and vice chair are in their first years. And then the other point that's identified in the legislation is that the incoming chair or vice chair cannot be from the same municipality and that served in the position prior. So as an example, if one of the chair or vice chair are from, let's say, City of Kawartha Lakes, then another City of Kawartha Lakes member would not be able to be in that specific position. And in the case of the Region of Durham, that accounts for all members from the Region of Durham. So in the case of, we do have Robert Rock as the chair, for instance, for currently, up until the elections, then it would be Clarington, Scugog, Brock would not be able to go there unless a minister's exception is requested. So they wouldn't be able to fulfill that until such time as the minister grants that approval. Following the election of chair and vice chair, I'll step down, and the newly elected chair for the year will assume the chair role. Any questions on procedure? Great. So with that, I'll call for the appointment of scrutineers. So I'd like to call for a motion that the event of a vote by electronic ballot, that John Chambers and Christy Virgo be appointed as scrutineers. A bit of a change from the proposed agenda, only because we're working out the technology, and John's best suited for that. So, and that all ballots be destroyed following the election. Could I have a mover? Yeah, your Franzen. Seconder, Director Warren. Great, all in favor, thank you. and carried. All right, so we'll move into the election for chair, and I'll ask for nominations for chair. And again, nominators will require a nominator only. And when nominations are received and no further nominations put forward after 3 calls, a motion to close nominations will be requested. So with that, Peter?
I'd like to nominate Pat Warren.
Great, and a second call for nominations for chair. And a third call for nominations for chair. And given that, I'll ask for a motion that the nominations for a position of chair be closed. If I could have a mover, Director Richardson and Director Wright will close nominations. All in favor? Thank you. Great, thank you. And what I'll do is I'll just ask if Director Warren, if you're willing to stand for chair.
I am.
Great, and would you like to address the membership?
Well, thank you. Yes. I was chair many years ago, not that many years ago, 2014, I believe. So this is a great honor. And I hope to have a very good year working with staff and my fellow directors. And I have a question for you. So if somebody isn't present, can you nominate them for vice chair?
You can. The only point is that we would want to make sure that they're able to stand for the position. So we wouldn't be able to achieve that.
So no, okay. So that being said, I'd like to nominate Harold for vice chair. I guess we're getting ahead of it.
Yeah,
sorry. Just moving things along.
No, it's great.
I know. Well, just come on, let's get going.
Yep. Yes, so congratulations.
Thank you.
On your appointment as chair. So with that, thanks for the segue into the next part there, which is election of vice chair. I'll ask for nominations of vice chair. Same rules apply, require a nominator only. And after 3 calls, a motion to close nominations will be requested. So I'll ask for, I think we've already received one from our new chair, which is for Director Wright, I believe it was.
Yes.
And any other nominations for vice chair? And a third call for nomination for vice chair? And not seeing any, I'll ask that nominations for the position of vice chair be closed. Could I have a mover and a seconder? Director Pettingill and Director Richardson. Great, all in favor? Wonderful. Thank you.
So you want to stand?
And yeah, so Director Wright, would you be willing to stand for the position of vice chair?
Oh, I originally thought it was a bit fresh and new for this, but I'm staying as long as Director Warren is there to nurse me through this, we can make it all right and that. So yes, I will stand.
Nothing to it.
Great, awesome. And so no elections are required, of course, as a result. Would you like to address the membership in
Well, basically, yes, just repeat what I said there. Yeah, I've got 1 year under my belt here with the Conservation Authority, and I seem to be quite interested in what's going on here. It's been a good experience over the years, finding out just exactly what gets done, what gets accomplished here, and it's good. And there can be some changes coming forward in the coming years, so we're looking forward to hearing that and the best acclimatize to these changes and proceed as best we can in the future. Thank you very much for your confidence.
Awesome. And with that, congratulations on your position as vice chair.
Hey, there you go.
There you go.
And with that, I will gladly hand it over to the chair.
Okay, and now we can get rid of these computers in front of us. We didn't have to vote.
Which is great.
Yeah.
I thought we got to take them home. Conservation Authority.
Thank you.
This one's fine. Let's get this one.
Oh, I'm fine here.
I didn't get rid of it. Close this. I've got one more for you.
Yeah.
You're finished.
Yeah.
It makes sense.
Trying to find the close button on here.
Oh, just close it down and
Just close it
they'll
down.
take it, they'll take care of it.
Oh, just close it down. There you go. Okay. Cheers.
Good. Well, it's Tuesday. For competition, it was last, went off to play it, yeah, they're next to two.
This much.
So, okay, and Lloyd's here, so I guess I'm not gonna be able to speak in well.
Not too well. I'll try to keep my eye out.
Okay. Okay, we're gonna get going here, and so, can I have a motion to adopt the agenda? Tracy and Eric, all in favor? Carried. Great, okay. Any declarations of pecuniary interest? None seen. Okay, we're on to 4. Can I have a motion to approve the minutes of the meeting of the number 9 of 23? Priya? Eric? All in favor? Carried. Great. Okay. Any business arising from the minutes? Okay, none seen. We have no deputations. So we're on to 7 presentations and applicable actions items, page 14. 7.1, Mark, year in review.
Yeah, great. Thank you, Madam Chair. So I'll provide some introductory notes on our year, and we do have a video to share with you as well. And you might have noticed that there's a fresh annual report as well that's just been finalized. I believe yesterday we finalized that. So proud to present our accomplishments on our 2023 year in review, and of course everything that we do is tied to our strategic plan as well. So I'm happy to say that we achieved 34 out of 39 different specific actions that are identified within our strategic plan. So it's been a successful year. You certainly don't expect to hit every single one of them in a particular year, and we have a 5-year plan. So we've done very well furthering those objectives. Of course, our goal as an organization is to make sure that people feel connected to the environment and recognize all the good work that we do, and that's done through several pillars. Protect and restore, which are really achievements in watershed health, engaging and inspiring, connecting to our communities and putting things in play that are important to them, and innovation and enhancement. So making sure that we're fresh as an organization and make sure that we improve on our service deliveries. So I'd also like to thank, of course, yourselves, the board, because you've been a great board working with us in achieving these objectives, and of course our staff, who are most important in being able to further the strategic plan and everything that we do. So many thanks to board and staff for everything. We are in the 2nd year of the strategic plan. So this is, we have another 3 years to work on the strategic plan, but we have a great start from the last couple of years. I'll go into a couple of highlights that are identified in the work that we're doing for corporate services by department. So corporate services, big focus this year has been on the legislative compliance with the Conservation Authorities Act. And we've been able to do a great job with that. We're 100% in compliance. And we'll be actually addressing the last little bit, which is still in compliance because we have minister's approval. It just happens a little bit later in the timeline, but we're happy that all the transparency and accountability measures that were introduced by the province and that we had to deliver on by the end of the year are in place. And that did require a whole budget redevelopment, including all the background documents that the budget relies on and the reporting that comes out throughout the course of the year on our finances. And of course, the MOUs with municipalities are either completed or one has a final approval to go through. Another big element was the asset management plan. This was a very first asset management plan for the organization, and we did receive a significant grant as well to complete those works, which was greatly appreciated from the Federation of Canadian Municipalities. And this really sets in motion an active management of our assets, which is great. And I'll mention one more element, which is information technology. There's some of the unseen work that you don't see every day, but examples include this conferencing system, the method in which our director is able to join us remotely. We have the video capabilities, and a new computer, for instance, in the back. That's a little box on the wall that makes sure that everything's running smoothly, and that on top of improved Wi-Fi across our buildings. As just a couple of examples, and that's not including all the computer upgrades and staying on top of Windows migration and things like that, or other programs. We also did cloud backups, which seemed like a really small item, but in the end, that saves a tremendous amount of time on our end to shuttle drives back and forth or maintain infrastructure. So that is now reduced in terms of that, and we have better backup points as well, which helps protect the organization's information. In conservation lands, next area that I'm going to focus on, really the popularity of our conservation areas is really well known, and we'll be actually recognizing one member of that crew in a little bit with the Years of Service Award, and really they make the connection with everyone that uses our properties. And a couple of examples, Ken Reed, for instance, is very popular, and keeping that maintained for everyone's benefit is something that they're keen on. We also had the Nature's Edge disc golf course that was implemented this year and open for everyone. Another big project in Durham East Cross Forest is the Eco Corridor project, which involves a naturalization of a significant stretch of the hydro corridor, which means that we'll have less intrusion in those areas that we see regular intrusions on currently in order to maintain that hydro corridor. So that's going to be a better management position for that CA in the long run, which is tremendous. And we're doing some neat things like working with First Nations community on that, as well as Hydro One. As a couple of examples.
Okay.
I did mention a little bit, but not too much, about our community outreach and education. And Fall Festival, Christmas at Ken Reed, and the Illuminated Forest are examples of a couple of big events. 6,300 visitors this year, we estimate, in just those three events alone. And again, a lady at the back there, key person in delivering those. So many thanks to her. And of course, there's a couple other members of the crew that really make those things happen. So those are tremendous, and just introduces more people to nature and the environment, and hopefully as a result, caring a little bit more about the environment. There's been tremendous work on the stewardship side, and the one piece I think I want to highlight, maybe two, is tree planting targets. We have a target in our stewardship strategy of 21,000 trees. The team almost hit that in one program area, which was tree seedling program. Overall, they almost tripled the estimated target that we struck when we first did the stewardship strategy. So they planted over 60,000 trees, which again, like I say, 21,000 was a target. That's nearly triple, which is tremendous. And the other one I'll mention, which is the Water Fund, and this is where we help support landowners and initiatives that they want to undertake on their properties, or it could be a community base as well. So 33 grants were delivered last year. That's a $75,000 investment, and those are offered between Durham and City of Kawartha Lakes as part of the special projects. And out of that, about for every dollar invested, there's $3.03 that were invested from the landowner. So that's a tremendous return on investment as well. So kudos to the team on that end. In integrated watershed management, lots of implementation work to study the watershed and make the best recommendations for the future, and that includes stewardship projects. Might involve some other management decisions as well. So really trying to understand what our water's doing, and that's a reflection of what everyone's doing on the landscape. And so to do that, we've had significant public engagement in those programs. So again, connecting people to the monitoring so they can see changes over time has been an important part. So we have our volunteer collaborative that works with our lake associations, for instance, and a couple other folks to collect precipitation amounts and generally be engaged in the different work that we're doing. The other thing that they're really focused on is making sure that that information that's collected goes out again. So analyzed as well as just being generally accessible for everyone to use it in the way that they may see fit. In planning and development, we've had some challenges, I think, this year related to our service standards due to a vacancy, but very happy that everyone, like I say, it's everyone in that case, not just that one department. Everyone was involved in trying to make sure that that area of our business that needed some needs were bolstered, and that we're able to, in the end, achieve those targets towards the end of the year. So really proud of how the team pulled together on that end. There's been a lot of floodplain work as well this year on Trent Lakes, City of Kawartha Lakes, and in Haliburton that we're either doing or supporting. So lots of good work there, and you would have seen the Fenton Falls South project, of course, being approved at the one of the meetings in the fourth quarter of 2023. So with that, I'd just like to again thank everyone for all your contributions in the work that we do. For our directors, our staff, the directors that I have that work to try and achieve everything that we're trying to achieve. Really requires a lot of hard work, dedication, and a lot of things behind the scenes that you don't necessarily see, but it's great to highlight some of those big ticket items that we're able to do. So my thanks again.
Great, thank you. Are there any questions of Mark? That was fulsome. Yeah, yes, Eric?
Just one quick comment. There was an aroma this week, of all things in the report, you didn't refer to it right now, but the OMAFRA piece.
Yep.
Richard, who's not even our rep from this area, so a different OMAFRA, was referring to how great the relationship is here when he saw the Kawartha Lakes. I just thought that's a nice thing to pass along.
That's wonderful.
That's the word on the street, you know.
That's
So
great.
it's kind of nice to hear. I thought, yeah.
Thank you.
That's great.
We've been working on it a long time, so it's paying off.
Yeah. And they're great supporters of the work too. So it's great working with them, and I'm glad they like working with us too. So that's tremendous.
Good stuff.
Awesome.
Okay, any other questions or comments? Okay, we'll move on.
Could I ask one
Yeah,
favor,
Priya?
Madam Chair? I wasn't able to load my agenda. I'm using a paper copy. So if, as you did just before, once in a while mention the page number, I'd really appreciate it so I can find my way through this. Thank you.
Yeah, okay.
I know that was.
So there are page numbers on, did you print out the agenda?
Well, I'm borrowing.
Because they do
the
have-
printed agenda, yeah.
They do have the page numbers.
Yeah, no, yeah, so it's just, you don't know how long something is when you.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Okay. All right, so we're gonna move on to 7.2, and you're, nope. am I
Sorry,
missing
we have
something?
the year in review video.
Oh,
If you want
sorry,
to see it.
okay, yep. Yep, that'd be good.
If you click on the little square.
Nice.
Very happy. Very good.
Yeah, it's really heartening to see how Kawartha Conservation has really expanded in all the years I've been around anyway. It's just amazing, amazing staff that make things shine. So thank you. Okay, and that moves
Yep.
us into 7.2, Years of Service Award. Mark.
Great. So we do have years of service awards for several individuals here. And what I'll do is I'll ask that maybe I'll call out a couple of your names. So if we can get, do you want to do the everyone thing?
I think everyone should be part of it. That's, yeah.
So we're going to take some pictures is what this amounts to. So what we'll do is we have some frame prints that are part of our years of recognition awards. And we have a couple of well-deserved members around here that are up for their various years of service. And we'll get everyone up and then I'll talk a little bit and then our chair for this year is going to present the nicely framed print to individuals, and I'll talk a little bit about them and let the pictures go as we're
With everybody involved.
With everyone involved, yeah.
Absolutely.
So with that, maybe I'll call the first person up, which is a lady in the back, which you heard me refer to a couple of times in the your interview, which is Melissa Creasy Alexander.
So are you gonna get
And, oh yes, I can get the frame print for her, and we can just stand right in front
Yeah,
of this.
come on up, everyone.
So I'll just, while the pictures are going on, I'll just let everyone know a little bit about Melissa Creasy. So Melissa. So Melissa is as you can see.
Yes, you're part of this. Yeah, come on, you gotta make us look good. Come on. Come on.
We can all promise that
I think
Just turn sideways a bit like that.
Yeah. There.
Good times.
Yeah.
So Melissa is a friendly face to our CAs. She keeps everything running smoothly. If you know anything about Melissa, she does everything in a cheery, cheerful manner, and nothing gets her down. She's tremendous. So she, like I said, keeps everything working. She pitches in everywhere. So she's one of those linchpins that keep everything, the glue together. Right now, she's working on the Durham East Cross corridor initiative. So that big project that I was talking about, 3-year project, she's the one responsible for that. And in her spare time, she's one of the key coordinators for our fall festival, Christmas at Kennery. And then on top of that, she helps out with the other crews on some of the CA stuff. So a tremendous person, brings tremendous passion, always, like I say, always cheerful, problem solving and pitching in are kind of the key things that I think about when I think about Melissa. So congratulations.
Thank you so much, everybody. I really appreciate it.
Lots of pollinator plants.
Yes,
right?
that's right.
Oh, so wonderful. Yeah.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you.
So our next person that we're going to recognize is Jonathan Lucas. It's interesting because Melissa's been around for almost 6 years, and the time's flown by. Similarly with John, the time has flown right past. So I'd like to recognize John for his 5 years.
Are these all your photography?
These ones are, yes.
Great. Lovely.
So.
Come on up here.
All right.
Get in.
Yeah, I'll let them.
Jonathan, congratulations.
Appreciate it.
There you go.
There you go. Hold that, and John will take a picture.
And I think John chose this one because it's in the Port Perry area where it was actually taken, so in his backyard. And so John is our Director of Corporate Services. He started with us as an accountant, but he's shown tremendous skills coming from where he was before in the private sector and applying all his knowledge. So he was a manager in the previous company, came to us as an accountant. But we're able to see very quickly that all his skill sets in his previous setting and in that management position really showed us that he has a ton of potential. And so he's shown that he's innovative, efficient, ruthlessly efficient, almost. A tremendous problem solver and always on top of things. So all those things together, we saw the potential in him as well. So he became our acting director and is now our director. He's been responsible for a number of things since coming on to our organization, building upgrades, service upgrades, IT. Our VoIP was one of his first, wasn't it? The initiatives, it was during the pandemic anyway, I remember that part. Financial reporting, streamlining initiatives, our new budget, and tons of other stuff I haven't mentioned. So congratulations.
Congratulations.
Thanks, Mark. I appreciate it. It's hard to believe 5 years, almost 6 years now coming up. That's flown by. And just to Pat's comment earlier of how much things have changed since you were last year, even within the last 5 years, it's amazing to see the change in growth and everything of the organization. So that's great to be a part of. So, appreciate all the support.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Awesome. And then the last person we're going to recognize for service recognition is today. You notice that the frame's a little bit bigger. And the frame's a bit bigger because this person's got a major milestone.
Did you take this one also?
I did.
Wow. I've got one of Mark's too. I love Mark.
I think I'm about to now. See what's going on.
I do follow him on Instagram. Yeah,
Yeah.
but he doesn't post much anymore, but he has. He's too busy.
So with this person reaching a major milestone, 20 years with us. So I'd like to recognize Nancy Aspden.
Yay. Yes. Thank you for that turn.
So Nancy is our acting director of integrated watershed management. And she started many, many years ago as our GIS specialist. And I remember at the time I was doing interviews for that, and it was actually a replacement position for my position earlier. So I wanted to make sure that the GIS was taken care of. And so I was trying to find someone that would do a good job of it. And so had the interviews, and this young lady came down, but she drove a long way to get here, I remember. And I do remember in that same interview that a couple others chose not to come in. And so we did those by telephone. And so it was like, this person drove all the way. That's showing some commitment to what they want to achieve. And I was like, and then in the interview, it was like, yeah, pretty nice young lady. I can see some potential there. And so anyways, we hired her on, and she's been tremendous from day one all the way through. So I would, if I was to characterize Nancy, she's innovative, she's caring, diligent, and I mean, she's personable too, which is always nice. But I would say she's a change agent. But I would say she's a change agent because she's able to implement change in a nice way, get things done. So that's what Nancy does, is she does things in a nice way, gets things done. She always delivers. And is able to motivate others to achieve those things as well. So she started, as I mentioned, as our GIS specialist, progressed to a coordinator role for the Integrated Watershed Management Department, and was a acting manager. I thought she did tremendous in that position. And so she's the acting director at this point in time. So she's like I say, tremendous. She's a caretaker for all our mapping information. And I think one of the key things for her is she doesn't like to stay in the box, which is tremendous, because as a CA, you don't want to stay in the box. You have to kind of contribute in other ways. So one of her big passions was like, we haven't done education in a long time. And so she was the spearheader for getting education back online. So that's the work that we do today with the At Last School, for instance, is this, was a result of Nancy's efforts. But the best part was, before the pandemic, we were running our own education program. And so Nancy was spearheading all of that work. The other thing that she does right now is our innovation hub, so you would have seen some great efforts on that end, and some of my CRO reports. Manages the IWM team, keeps them all organized and efficient. And I think the other big quality about Nancy is you'll see her in all of the community events. Most notably, you'll see her as a Sparky in Christmas at Ken Reed, but she's always contributing in those, and always willing to be the face of the organization. So, congrats.
Thank you. Updated. Oh my God, thank you. I love, congratulations, you did a great job, and I really mean all the changes that have happened in the last 20 years or so. It's been really notable.
It hasn't seemed like 20.
No.
It's been pretty fun.
No, yeah,
But yeah, thanks for the picture.
yeah, it's great. Thank you.
Really great.
That's it. Thank you.
So nice. I have one, like, I tried.
Okay.
It's my favorite. That's my favorite. Yeah.
We're going to move on to staff reports. 8.1 permits issued by designated staff. Matthew.
Sorry. We need some resolutions.
Oh, to receive the, okay.
And the remarks, report.
Okay, sorry. Okay, first of all, I guess a motion to receive Mark's report. Tracy, Peter, all in favor? Carried. And do we need one to,
Yes, for the years of service. Yep.
okay, and also a motion for the years of service. Okay. Peter, Harold, all in favor? Carried. Great. We're all good then? Okay, Matt.
Thank you, through you, Madam Chair. As found on page 27 of the agenda, the total number of permits issued by designated staff were 35 permits during December. This reporting period showed improvement issuance statistics, and excuse me, sorry, where 86% of permits were received, and the timelines were also improved to 97% of permits issued within timelines. We are seeking resolution that the section 28 permits issued by staff has been issued.
Okay, are there any questions of Matt? All righty, I need a motion to receive his permits. Tracy, Kriya, all in favor? Carried, thank you. Okay, so 8.2. Page 30. Permit for board approval, 45 King Street West, Omimi. Matt.
Thank you again. Through you again, Madam Chair. We seek resolution that the permit application submitted pursuant to Ontario Regulation 182-06 at 45 King Street West, will need to be approved and permitted to construct the proposed residential dwelling and driveway modifications. For background, the property is located on the northern side of Highway 7 within Alimi, between James Street and Alma Street. The applicant is proposing a residential dwelling with a basement and attached garage to replace the original structure on the property. The proposed work can meet the majority of Kawartha Conservation's policies with exception to the construction of a basement within the floodplain. And it's not meeting the cut and fill balance condition for flood storage on site. The basement is proposed to be wet proofed, which was reviewed by this to the satisfaction of a qualified professional. The floodplain balance is estimated to increase by less than 1 cubic meter on the site. And is anticipated to have negligible impact on the floodplain. Staff are of the opinion that the proposed modifications and subsequent construction will not increase the risk of flooding and public safety or the property damage from a natural hazard perspective. Thank you.
Thank you. Are there any questions? Eric?
Just one, and it's not in reference to my opinion about this one. It's a genuine question I had when I was reading this. If we said no, 9-10, if we said no here, is this something that we could still see as a deputation that the council could bring forward as we typically see at council? Or is this, because I've never, often at council we'll have people come in and they'll say, we're asking for instead of, but I've never seen one yet in my only, because I've only been a year in, I've never seen one where they came and said, and the Conservation Authority said no. So I was just wondering if this is a final board, or is there still an opportunity? If we do vote no, is there still an opportunity for these people to come?
Yeah, so Madam Chair, I can explain that for certain. So any application that we bring forward as part of the board meeting, we consider that the risk is low, and that there's minor variations in the policy that wouldn't really pose a significant risk to anyone. So those could move to a different forum. So one of the key things in these discussions is if any of the board members feel like something shouldn't be approved, then it would get moved over to a hearing. And so the hearing is a much more involved process that is a quasi-judicial process where you really delve into the details, make sure that both sides can be heard, and then a decision officially rendered that would then be subject to the OLT. So a lot of times if there was a permit was rejected or denied at the board level, then there's an appeal mechanism on that end. So we generally, it's a permissive reg, which is kind of part of the background. So we try and achieve the ends of the policy and do that. But on occasion, and we do have a couple applications that are in the mix that currently are not satisfying that the policies. Those, if the landowner's unable to meet those ends, those would end up at a board. And then the decision kind of rendered at that point. So generally, because we approve most of them, we don't get into a situation where someone's having to bring something forward.
Thank you.
I've only been party to that maybe 3 times. It's very rare. Not very enjoyable.
Just can I make a
Yeah, Priya?
And we remember that case where, they filled in the wetland because they had a house that had been sited there before, it was permitted for building a house, and we had that big question, and that would have gone to a hearing. But in a case like this where, the staff are satisfied that this basement will stay dry, because a professional has said so, I guess that's a professional who isn't a Kawartha Lakes Conservation Authority member. What if at some point there is major flooding and the house is ruined and they try to sue everybody they can? Does the Kawartha Lakes Conservation Authority potentially see themselves as one of those parties who may be sued because they gave the go-ahead to this and were part of the process? I mean, is there ever something going?
Yes, through Madam Chair, that is always a possibility for any single thing we touch, whether it be an approval or like on the planning end, or whether it be on the regulation end. it's always a possibility, which is why we have insurance to help cover that liability. So it's, yeah, like say, anything that we touch, we have an option for if someone's not satisfied or someone goes a little squirrely.
How is the third party professional who checked that this basement would stay dry? What credentials do they have to make that statement?
In this case, they were a qualified engineer, a licensed engineer, and it was a stamped set of plans and I believe a report as well.
Okay, thanks.
I didn't have a motion on that, did I? No. Okay, so I need a motion to accept this. Okay, Harold, seconder. Tracy, all in favor? Carrie. Great. Okay, so 8.3 strategic actions update, fourth quarter, Mark.
Great. Thank you, Madam Chair. And what I'll do is I'll generally keep this one probably fairly short, since our annual year in review covered off a number of items. So what I'll do is maybe I'll just leave it up for any comments from the board on the report, and any questions to the end, and leave it at that.
Yeah, that's a good idea. I guess on lake management planning, I'm going to bring it up, the Bob Cajun Dam, and I'm just wondering where that is in the mix. Because I didn't really see that.
Yeah, so I can probably start, Madam Chair, and then I know Christie's probably add some points as well. So the Bob Cajun Dam is integrated within the action plan, and it'll go forward. The key thing is funding to support it. Is kind of how we put forward that program. So when there's some grant funding to support that, then we'll be able to move forward. As it is, we've had the conversations with I think Trent Severn Waterway and a couple other folks, but maybe I'll turn over to Christie at that point because
sure. So it was a project that came up in the original implementation action plan that ended in 2023. It was not adopted as a project at that point in time, but Brett from the IWM team has been continuing to participate in community meetings and meetings with some of the different bodies that look after that to try and come up with some sort of a plan or some sort of a project that we might be able to put together. So as part of the implementation action plan that's starting in 2024, it is one of the items, and one part of that is looking for some funding in order to move forward in any meaningful way. Because I mean, we can continue to meet, but when rubber hits the road, you have to actually do something, and that's going to require a significant amount of funding. And so that's what they're going to be focusing on at this point in time, is trying to secure that funding and develop a program or a project.
So have you talked to Trent Severn about possibly funding it?
I'm not sure how far they've gone with regards to looking for funding. I know we're always looking for different funding opportunities, and when we have projects, which ones slide into the different funding opportunities. I don't think they've done a deep dive on it at this point because we're only a few weeks into the year. But I think you'll probably be hearing more about that in the following months.
So I believe David Britton is coming to our committee of the whole meeting in February. So that might be a possible question.
Good question, ask that. So it's a good question.
It is, yeah. So he'll be speaking on the bridge issue, but trying to get some other things going. So, okay, thank you, Christy. That's great. Okay, any other questions from Mark's report? Okay, can I have a motion to receive his report, please? Priya, seconder, Eric, all in favor? Carrie, great, thank you. Okay. How many reports do you have here? Okay, all righty. Okay, so was that 8.3 or 8.4?
That was 8.3.
Okay, so we're on to 8.4. So take it away.
Great. Yeah, thank you, Madam Chair. So 8.4, that's on page 46 of your agenda. And I'll highlight maybe just a couple of items. One is on the finance side of things, end of year is a big time for finance because they're doing a couple things. They're trying to achieve all the rollovers and on the HR side of things in terms of time and also on the financial side in terms of which projects are finalized, invoices, closing them off for the year and preparing for audits. So they're in that cycle right now. They'll be into that cycle all through till probably April. So it'll be a busy time for them. The other one that we're involved with is the pay equity and compensation review. So that's going underway right now, and we anticipate that being completed towards the end of the first quarter. So that's the kind of framework for that. We'll bring it forward to the board in either probably it won't be February, but most likely March or April, I think, at the latest. So we're excited about that. That'll introduce a new kind of way of doing business in the CA with a defensible kind of matrix that's built in behind it. We have some background right now on that, but this will produce a much stronger model. So we're excited about putting that into play. On the development services side of things, the source protection plan has been submitted to the Ministry of Environment, which is a pretty big thing for anyone that's involved in the source water. So this will be an update of our source protection plans and a response to on a policy front to the technical rules that were revised by the province. So that means that there might be a few more risk management plans that are required to be negotiated with landowners. The other thing that was great, which I mentioned before, is the 3-year commitment from the province. So that work plan has gone forward to the province, which is great. A couple of projects, I guess, that are underway, which are legislative requirements to be done by the end of the year, is the conservation area strategy and land inventory, as well as the watershed-based resource management strategy. So we'll be working on those over the course of the year, and we're just starting in on those conversations and producing products. I guess you can say there's been some discussions last year, but now the snowball is growing as we start rolling it down the hill. So or up the hill, depending on your perspective. And I guess that's really all I'd like to highlight, other than we do a lot of work with different folks, and some of that includes our academia and different research. So just received this from Nancy, which is a recognition of one of our members. They had an article with some other folks that was accepted to the Royal Society of Chemistry.
Yeah.
And it's a paper, you'll love the title, Emerging Investigator Series, the Impacts of Land Use on Dissolved Organic Matter Quality in Agricultural Watersheds, a Molecular Perspective. So if anyone's interested, I can certainly forward that on to everyone. It's only 65 pages.
Okay.
Molecular.
Maybe someone from EAC might like that, actually.
Perhaps.
Yes.
So it's great that we have staff that are being recognized in this fashion, and that is Tanner Liang, our water quality specialist. So congrats to him. And I know that there's others that are involved in some other work that are kind of going through some academic research papers as well. So, but this is one that is a pretty big accomplishment for a small organization that's committed and has a lot of passion. So,
absolutely.
and with that, I think that's all I'll highlight on my.
So is that 8.4 and 8.5?
No, that's just 8.4.
Okay.
Yeah.
Okay. The other correspondence too, right? Okay. All right. So I need a motion on 8.4, please, to receive that. Tracy, Peter, all in favor? Carried. Great. Okay. 8.5, correspondence.
Right, so 8.5, correspondence. There's a couple of pieces of correspondence. 2 are related to budget process. And the third is one from the Ministry of Municipal Affairs and Housing. It's something that you've seen before, which is really legislation has received royal assent for the Greenbelt inclusion of lands that were taken out and put back in. So, yeah, so that's all I'll highlight on that front. We're in compliance with the budget pieces, so.
That's good. Great. Okay, another motion.
What page are we around now? Because
I think that was 58.
Yep.
Okay.
So Priya, you want to make that
Sure.
motion? Okay. And Harold,
Yes.
second? Okay, all in favor? Carried, great. Okay, we're on to 9.1. Administrative resolutions for 2024, page 135.
See, it suddenly jumps and you don't.
Yeah, that was a big jump.
Yeah.
Yeah, there's a lot of, yeah. Just get there too, actually. Sometimes it doesn't.
Yeah, I found the bookmarks that really helped us down.
Yeah, yeah, it does. It's good for me because I'm on here, right?
Yeah.
And I can jump forward. Okay. So, okay, Jonathan,
Thank you. Through you, Mr. Chair, sorry, Madam Chair,
that's okay.
routine, I'm sorry. Today, we're just bringing forward our administrative resolutions in accordance with our bylaw for 2024. So today we'll just be seeking a resolution on our recommendations for the banker, solicitor, auditor, and our borrower resolution. So I'll just briefly touch on a few of them. So for our banking, we were recommending to continue banking with Royal Bank of Canada, just out the financial reason. They've been providing very exceptional service, their quick response, and they also help facilitate not only some additional savings programs for staff, but they are a good contributor to programs and grants for the organization. We've had a $250,000 borrowing of funds or credit available to the organization. This was originally back when we had completed the building expansion, but we do maintain this line of credit for $250,000. We haven't required to actively use it since then, but it is there just if there is any delays in funding for operational needs at the organization, just as a mitigation measure that we're recommending. And then for our solicitors, we are recommending the same solicitors as in 2023. I do just want to note, we recently just received some notice that Ron Cork will be retiring, so they are transitioning their practice over.
So what will happen then? Will that come back to the board for, yeah, okay,
So
thank
we'll be
you.
coming back to the board hopefully within the next few months, and we're also just going to determine, is it best to have one lawyer maybe for land and look at a general purpose lawyer? We also have to get into discussions with the recommended lawyer from their practice retirement. So we'll be bringing something forward to the board in
Great.
the coming months. And lastly, I'll just note, we also included insurance in there. It is something that's approved by through the budget process. We just felt for ultimate transparency, it'd be good to include for administrative resolutions, just do the dollar amount, tying back to our purchasing policy on an annual basis. So we want to loop there. And for the auditors, we don't have a resolution, as last year our resolution was to work with BDO for 2022, 3, and 4. So we have that resolution still supporting there.
Great, thank you. So do we need resolutions for separately for all of those? Or can we do them en
Do it all
masse?
as en masse, yeah.
Okay, great, thank you. Okay, can I have a motion to accept all these resolutions? Harold? Tracy, any comments? All in favor? Carried, great. Okay, and then we're on to 9.2, funding grant application tourism growth program, page 137.
And this
Okay,
will be Christie.
yeah, Christie, I'm sorry, I thought I mentioned.
That's okay.
Sorry.
That's all right, Pat. So through you, Madam Chair, we have a really interesting opportunity. The Tourism Growth Fund has put out a call for applications for sort of improving tourism attractions. And one of the specific areas that they're allowing is for the improvement of infrastructure that is going to help support the tourism draw for a community. As you have been aware over the course of last year, our Marsh Boardwalk has undergone a significant amount of damage, both just from general degradation. It's 25 years old and it's wood and it's sitting in water. So it's going to degrade over time, and having had 25 years out of it, I think we're pretty lucky. We are seeing some sections of it that are starting to fail, and with the increased traffic to our conservation areas, the increased pressure on our infrastructure, and a little bit of vandalism mixed in, we see that there's a need to address this rather than from a piecemeal bit by bit, but just take a look at it and remove it and replace it with something that's going to be a little more substantial and last for a little bit longer. So as a result, the team has gone out and looked at some preliminary quotes to sort of satisfy the needs of being able to apply for this grant, because it's a 50% grant up to a maximum of $250,000. So we wanted to know what our ballpark was. Well, how much are we generally going to be asking for? The first quote that we got back that we think was fairly reasonable was for the removal of the existing boardwalk and the replacement of it with another floating boardwalk that's framed out of aluminum, so it's going to last a little bit longer, with some wood decking and some upgraded features to it. It's going to be about $530,000 in order to replace it, which means we're going to be looking at a full cap out at $250,000 in grant request, meaning that we're going to have to find the other $280,000 if this is the actual quote that we end up going forward with. This is the first one. We will have to go out to tender, obviously. We will have to take a look and see what other features are out there, what other technology is out there, and get some more wholesome quotes. But we're looking at a minimum of $250,000 in request and $280,000 from reserves. So before we make the application, this is a significant ask. And it's a significant ask not only from our funder, but also from our reserves. Mark and Jonathan and I have sat down and had some discussions around some of the reserves that we have, and we feel that we have room in our reserves to be able to allocate $280,000 and indicate to the government that's hosting this grant application that if we are successful, we do have the capacity and the willingness to commit those funds to this project. But we recognize that really comes down to what you folks are comfortable with regards to committing from our reserves. So that's what we're asking for today, is just sort of an approval in principle to go forward and to make the application. And then once the project starts to flush itself out, we'll be coming forward with more updates and more specifics around budget numbers and that sort of thing.
Hey, Tracy?
Great, thank you. Through you, Chair. The report was really extensive, and thank you for that. So if we're looking at life cycle, as of right now, do we have a projection of how long it would last if we didn't move forward?
How long the current piece?
Yes.
It's failing now.
That's what I thought.
So it is, I believe in our asset management plan, it's redlined. If it wasn't, it probably should be. As we had some failures this year that were like in 2023 that we weren't anticipating, once we started pulling boards off and seeing what was happening underneath, and you can see from some of those pictures, the actual infrastructure underneath has just crumbled and fallen apart. So it's just sort of sitting on top of floats, but it's not really secured to the floats. And if that's happening in one or two sections, we can pretty much be guaranteed that it's happening in a number of them.
So definitely a health and safety risk.
Definitely.
I think, the way you've written the report is very extensive. The visuals are very extensive, and let's be honest, it is the gem of, a lot of reasons why people do come to the conservation is they love that boardwalk and that interaction with nature. So, when you're looking at reserves, where are we sitting for reserves? Just in a ballpark.
Yeah, Jonathan can jump in. I know conservation areas has some reserves, so we'd be looking at taking some of it from our conservation areas reserves, and then we have some general reserves. I think my conservation areas is sitting at almost 200, maybe close to 200,000, and then we'd be looking at probably some general reserves. We haven't gone through our audit either, so no. Yeah, I'm not really sure what the beginning of 2024 looks like. I only know what the beginning of 2023 looks like at this point, but Jonathan probably has more detailed information than I do on that.
Well, I would be in support of moving ahead just because, I mean, we're, you know, in the building world right now, they're projecting shortages like crazy in the next 2 years because of all the housing and whatnot. So all those prices are gonna continue to increase. So, no, thank you.
Jump on
Yes, Madam Chair. Christie, are they giving you any expectation of an expected life of this new floating, the aluminum style, or can we expect 25 or 50 years maybe?
Yeah, I don't have a lifespan estimate from the quote, from the organization that was quoting it. They were at a conference when we put the rush request out to quote. He said that the infrastructure is guaranteed for a minimum of 5 years. And then from there, what the lifespan is, I'm unclear on, but we will be requesting that as part of our formal request for proposal process.
Okay, Korea?
Yeah, thank you, and through you, Madam Chair. I mean, you said it's the gem, and I feel like it defines this conservation authority, and certainly, you know, as far as public ed goes and being able to walk in through the wetlands, et cetera, it is key. So I'm really in support. Would it make any sense to look for a quote that was just replacing the wood with wood, like for another 25 years? Do you think there's any potential substantial difference in price and long-term weighing it? Does that make any sense to consider that?
I think that would be part of our quotation process. So when we go out to a formal RFP, we would be asking each individual company to bring their best product forward. We obviously want to put something into that kind of a situation that isn't going to, that's going to have the longest possible lifespan. You know, we don't mind replacing surface boards, you know, from time to time, but once you get into the overall structure of the boardwalk, it becomes a little more difficult for staff to be able to manage those kinds of repairs. So, you know, not being an engineer, my suggestion would be wood sitting in the water is probably not the best option now that we have things like composite wood and different types of technology that we didn't have 25 years ago. It only makes sense that we would look to upgrade that kind of a thing.
Yeah, composite wood for sure. Is it present one, is there pressure treated wood being used, or is it not in this?
We don't use pressure treated wood on any water, any wood that sits in the water. In some cases, our handrails are used.
No, I'm happy to hear that. I'm happy to hear that. I'm just checking.
Yeah.
Yeah, we don't want that arsenic.
Yeah, exactly.
I like the idea of the composite wood. And aluminum, are there any threats with aluminum eventually? No. It's
Rust, I guess, maybe. I don't know.
Because you're wet.
Well, thanks very much.
It just makes sense that it's 50% dollars. That
You don't get those opportunities very often.
No, and just to say, I mean, we're trying to get the foundation back up and going, and that could be our initiative. Just focus on that with, you know, 100 women who care, 100 men who care, and just do as much as possible.
Absolutely. We are looking to launch a capital campaign, fundraising campaign around this once we have all those bits and pieces. Again, we just didn't want to go forward and launch something until we had the support of the board to move forward with something as big as this.
Yeah, makes sense. Any other comments or Eric?
That was just answered. That was my question. I would just, the only comment I was gonna have before the question was the timing with the first year of the asset management plan must have been, this is really great too. And I was reading this report, it was like, okay, so this is almost gonna be the weather beacon for evidence that this is a good fit, right? So that just stuck out when I was.
Okay, any other questions or comments? Eric?
Yeah, just one too, Madam Chair. This aluminum dock will be floating. To what degree will it be floating? The whole thing, you have these observation tiers on it, but they will be stabilized, I would think.
So the whole thing is floating on floats. So it's not just sitting on the water, it's sitting on float. So the frame of it is sitting on a float.
Yeah.
The observation decks are still at surface level, so they're not elevated in any way, shape, or form. If we went to an elevated viewing platform, which we did talk to them about opportunities to do that, they said that it would have to then be made, it wouldn't be made of aluminum, then it would be made of wood or composite, and it would have to be secured to the bed of the wetland in order to go any kind of elevation. But these viewing areas are really just sort of an extra wide section of the boardwalk that they would walk out onto. But yes, the whole thing is floating.
Thank you.
I just think it makes sense. It really needs to get done and we're gonna have to raise some money. So, yeah. Okay, can I have a motion to go forward? Eric, Tracy? All in favor? Carrie, great. Good stuff. Okay, 9.4 Conservation Authorities Act, Phase 2 Transition Activities, page 206.
Thank you.
I gotta use that too.
Oh,
myself.
hang on, so we're skipping.
Oh, am I skipping some?
Budget.
It was 140.
Let's just go with that. Oh, yeah, okay, corporate services. Sorry, yes, this is interesting because I'll just say, it just seems like the cart's before the horse. I mean, we've all approved it, I believe, at our council, so it was like, it's kind of a fait accompli, so.
Yeah.
Anyway, let's do it.
It's the legislative process that we have to follow. It's all outlined now in the regs.
So will it be this way next year?
Yes, every year.
So,
The only difference is that this year has been a bit unusual, I'll call it, in that we had to get all pieces together. So we had to revise all our accounting codes, redevelop the entire budget. So we threw out the old budget and had to, well, I would say John had to redo it. Yeah, he had to throw out the old budget, create a brand new budget, which is Excel. And then work out all the formulas from there to get to where we are. So that was a ton of work. And so it took a lot of time to do that, which is where it was delayed this year compared to other years where we try and bring it forward in September.
Oh, in September.
Yeah,
So
September.
before that, okay.
And so we'd have a final, usually a budget vote in December, November, December.
So how does it also work if some of the folks aren't here to vote?
For this one, what we're actually suggesting is that we defer for another time until February.
Everybody's here?
Well.
Or
you never
online,
know.
or how's this,
But in terms of the recording of the vote, there is an absent vote that's recorded, and then the numbers shift accordingly amongst the available percentages tied to the apportionment. So there is a method for doing it. We've done it numerous times.
Okay, right on, okay. So I need a motion. Resolve that the draft 2024 budget be updated to reflect any board recommendations prior to the circulation, and that the draft 2024 budget be presented at the February meeting for endorsement. Okay, Kriya, Harold, all in favor? Carried, okay. Sorry about that, okay.
Did Lloyd have a question?
I think he was just.
Oh, just supporting, okay.
Okay.
No, I moved a couple of things, but nobody sees.
You know what, I can't see you very well, your hand, so you're gonna have to speak up and say, hey, you.
Hey, I'll move the next thing.
Okay, right on. Okay, so now we're on to 9.4. So that.
206.
206, and so I believe the resolution has changed a bit.
Yes.
So I will read it. Resolve that staff report on Phase 2 transition activities related to Conservation Authorities Act changes be received, and that the draft agreements with the Regional Municipality of Durham be endorsed, and that the CAO be authorized to sign the agreements subject to municipal support through council resolutions supporting the draft agreements. So, I guess that's not in everybody's, so that's the resolution. Yeah.
I'll move that.
Okay, right on, okay. Do we have a seconder? for that. Okay, Peter. All in favor? Carried.
Do you want me to explain anything?
Please,
Okay.
yes.
So this is the phase 2 transition activity. So all MOUs with Trent Lakes, with Cavan Monaghan, City of Kawartha Lakes are all done. So Durham was the outstanding one. So I've had some good discussions with Durham Region, their staff on it. It went through committee of the whole on the 17th.
Okay.
So it's got the first layer of approval there, and it'll go forward to their council as a whole on the 31st of January. And then since there were some pieces that did change compared to the other municipal agreements, this is brought forward, and that's why the second part, which was really similar to what was approved in October, but it was those agreements that were being approved. So this is just making sure that we have the process covered off for this one.
I just assumed that it all happened, so.
That's where I was initially, and I was like, better be.
Better be specific. Yeah, for sure.
So the MOU with the Region of Durham was attached to this one, and a couple of the notable pieces. I mean, the most significant one is the elimination of the budget from the agreement, and instead replacing it with a tailored schedule that is in the same budget format, but identifies the apportionments for them. So I think it just makes their lives a little bit easier.
Okay, great. Okay, thank you. All
And
righty.
it's sort of Director's meeting.
Oh, yeah.
Sorry, if you, just a quick accounting, kind of a geeky question to ask, but I was curious, just new learning. Is it always attached, or MOUs in a 2-tier municipality, is it always attached to the county, this conservation? Or do you sometimes, yes, okay, so there is a difference there, right?
Region.
So through the partner municipalities, like the regions identified, which is way through the Conservation Authorities Act is scripted there.
Okay.
Yeah.
So Toronto in a way is a better comparator for us in Kawartha Lakes, that there's not a list in the same.
Single tier.
Single tier.
It's just one tier.
Yeah, so it'd be different.
I haven't heard any comments from the lower tiers, i.e. Brock, on sort of any comments that the lower tiers may have because they didn't have input. I mean, maybe theoretically through their regional reps, but I wonder if there's anything to that.
Yeah, through you, Madam Chair. That's where it would have happened. That's why it's going through committee of the whole and then through to regional council is that, like John mentioned, under the Conservation Authorities Act, the lower tiers are represented by the Region of Durham.
Yeah.
And that's where in the end the funds flow for apportionment, the apportionment from the Region of Durham. So it would only be through the regional reps that would have been achieved. But I did go to all the CAOs in the previous year to let them know about the process. So to do that. But the level of involvement in the overall piece is pretty minimal. Yeah.
I think, through you, Madam Chair, just comment on that I think when, if you actually looked at the prerequisites or stipulation for being appointed to a conservation authority, you were supposed to actually be a regional representative from a lower tier government. You're supposed to be on the upper tier government, like a regional counselor. But in our situation, and probably yours too, there just weren't enough to go around because we have 3 conservation authorities in Scugog Township. So we didn't have enough
People.
regional
Gotcha.
representatives to be on those conservation authorities.
Actually, in our case, it was because I specifically had the interest. And then when we went to the region, they were like, oh, that's it's not really that important, and it wasn't important to the conservation authorities. I hear you. I do remember that stipulation.
Maybe they could change the policy.
Yeah, because I
They
remember
should
that
change the policy.
conversation that came up. And said, well,
Yeah.
we haven't got enough
And you've
to do
got
it.
3, exactly.
Yeah. we did
You're
3,
sitting on
so-
3.
We have,
Unless
same.
you're provincial government that wants to limit the conservation, in which case this is a beautiful system.
Yeah.
You just described one of the key advantages that's what I was mulling over, right?
Well, and in the case of the LSRCA,
We don't,
I
oh, you're interested, go ahead.
ended up getting a note from the chair, Wayne Emerson, because I took over halfway through the last term when our mayor and stopped being our mayor. And he wrote a note saying, these are the type of people we want on our board because they care. So he said he was surprised that the rule existed.
But this lens is very rarely spoken about when you consider 108, 109, 25, all these different conversations that we have, the general optic that you have as a human being in your brain is municipalities. It's the first time I've looked at it as, that's why I was curious.
Yeah.
Strategy wise.
Yes, good.
And I do know that that clause has been in there for a very long time though. So it wasn't any of the recent changes. Yeah, it's been in there for as long as I've read the act. Yeah.
So through the chair, a municipality that are two-tier municipalities, but not in the regions, completely different.
Yes, and so that's where, through Madam Chair, the County of Peterborough and the lower tiers there, County of Peterborough is not a regional municipality.
Yeah.
And that's the distinction in the Conservation Authorities Act is, at a county level, it's a different, and so that's where the
really?
lower
Okay.
tiers
All right.
are represented. Yeah.
Interesting. Yeah. Something to change anyway. Yeah, okay. So we're gonna move on to the 10-year climate change strategy, page 214. And Nathan and John.
Yeah.
And Nancy, sorry. Doesn't say that here, sorry.
Yeah, Nancy can probably introduce it, and then we have a nice, well-dressed gentleman in the back there. That's Nate, and I won't take a picture of him this time, but he's
For his mom.
She might be watching. It's nice. So we'll bring Nate up and just in the front here. So
There you go.
And you know, Nate, when you get your 20-year picture, I'm still gonna bring up.
Oh, boy. Okay.
Look how nice he is. It's awesome. There we go.
So through
There we
you,
go.
Madam Chair, we have Nathan and John Chambers here to talk to you about our 10-year climate strategy that they've been working on for the last year. Nathan is going to run you through the process that they did. So hopefully we can get it endorsed today.
All right. Well, thank you. I guess as a overview, the history of what we've done with climate change. So I guess in 2016, our board of directors endorsed a 5-year climate change strategy. That document helped guide us through various challenges that we faced while we did the work that we did within our watershed and the programs that we ran. Starting in 2023, myself and John began developing our new 10-year climate change strategy, which ultimately aimed at providing, new ways to adapt and, manage the effects of climate change, while also helping contribute to the work that's being done by our member municipalities. Supporting our members is a key area of this strategy, as we believe that our strengths in, stewardship, data collection, precipitation monitoring, they all coincide with, the actions that our members wish to achieve. So that's a large focus of our strategy. Another area of focus was identifying gaps in our collective efforts. So, we strive to not only bridge these gaps and recognize them, but also in doing so help our other member municipalities, complete their goals related to those issues. So, in regards to the development of the strategy, myself and John began with our internal staff and working with them on getting an idea of what climate change means to them. We did a internal brainstorming activity here in the boardroom, along with a survey that just helped us refine our idea of the issue. And then came our public-facing survey, which we used to help gain an idea of what the public, is most concerned about in regards to climate change. And that survey got around 170 responses from people within, various communities. And after our surveys were done, we then began to review our member municipalities' climate change action plans, healthy environment plans, as well as their strategic and corporate plans, where we recognize, commonalities between the work that they're doing and what our vision is as an organization. So, yeah, that was a large part of this process. And throughout all that, one of the core pieces in the development of our draft was our strategic plan. Our strategic plan, as Mark mentioned, outlines, 3 sort of core pillars that we, see in all of the work that we do. First being protect and restore. Second being engage and inspire. And third being innovate and enhance, all of which, touch on different parts of the work that we do. And we recognize that not only do we see commonalities between what our members are outlining in their strategies and their documents, but we're able to see where we can help them and fulfill their goals and our goals. So now that the draft was moving forward, we provided it to leadership for them to sort of overview, along with our staff to give feedback, and ultimately they helped us with the full development of this strategy. And it was definitely a group effort. And big thanks to our staff, big thanks to John, Nancy, Mark for giving us guidance. And and I guess I would be remiss if I didn't also thank our member municipalities for helping us in the work we do. So that's sort of an overview, the best I can give. So
thank you very much. I went through it, and as John will attest, we've had an adaptation meeting with the health unit. In the city, we're really trying to get the healthy environment plan back on its feet and going. So going through this, there were a couple, the outcomes, and I go to outcomes is like promote green infrastructure and sustainable urban planning to mitigate the effects of climate change. And I just said, like, for me, that's huge, right? To get those partners working on that. And through that, you said you were, looking at a green team, but wouldn't it be great to have a green team with the municipalities? So we're all on the same page and moving towards those changes, because urban planning is very important.
For sure.
Yeah. So any questions or comments? It was a good plan. I really enjoyed reading it, and
thank you.
Yes,
So
Kriya.
when you talk about, are you talking about like helping municipalities develop green standards, which are still voluntary among developers, but ultimately
right?
they
They
will
have to
be
be changed.
legislated. I was at a presentation in Durham last night that where an announcement was made about greener Durham homes, and it was for buildings, starting especially with municipal buildings, which are large, to disclose all of their energy all of their energy expenses and emissions, etc., hoping that these benchmarks could help raise it higher. But it was mentioned that Ajax and Clarington and Whitby have green standards which they do present to their developers. I don't know if Kawartha Lakes has. Have you guys done that yet?
And that's why I'm speaking this way, because we really, I bring it up at planning a couple times that we need to make those changes. And I think that's really, really important. I think through Bill 23, the province has said you don't have to do that. Green building standards. So I'm not sure where we're at.
I'm bringing a motion forward tomorrow to our council to promote, sort of the greening of the Ontario Building Code. And this has been
That's
going
good.
through a number of municipalities
Yeah.
to try and enhance that. But I am gonna also at this time initiate again the discussion of us developing a green standards. Because part of what I heard last night was this guy who's in charge of green buildings for Toronto 2030. He can't imagine a new building or major retrofit that is still using gas heat. And we just approved our latest subdivision, and they're not using, air source heat pumps. They're heating with gas, and this is 2024. And there wasn't, a mention of it, and there's no way to lock that in or recommend it. So it just feels so frustrating and backwards to still be at this stage without having these standards.
And having to, down the line, having to pay for all that,
Well, it's all gonna have to be retrofitted.
right? So
Exactly.
at some point, it's like,
Still gas.
now's the time to be looking at all that. But
Yeah.
I think municipalities still can make resolutions to bring in their own green building standards, and I
They're
think,
just voluntary to date, that's the
Yeah,
problem.
that's the
But
thing.
eventually, when we all have them, they'll start getting some teeth.
it just makes sense, more insulation, all those things, yeah, so. Crazy.
Thank you, and through you, Chair, I just want to make a comment as well, is absolutely, we need to make that change, but we also need to make sure that the federal government and the provincial government is providing that funding so we can. Last night on the global news for Peterborough, they were talking about the completely green new fire station that's almost done over there. And then they talked about the funding to build that station, right? So there needs to be those type of partnerships out there. And
That was
even-
definitely said too last year.
right there, we do, we just need, all levels of government need to be moving in this direction and supporting each other. Another thing, and it came up at Roma as well, and we were talking about through the planning lens, how incredibly important our tree canopies are, and when it comes to planning, we shouldn't be taking down, these forest centers. We need to have a developer develop around these forest centers, right? But then they don't want to play that game. So I mean, really, there needs to be a lot of changes above us as well, and we need to be very strong on our messaging as well.
Yeah, and for developers and builders, right?
And I think it is a lot coming from municipalities, and we have to push the province to come to our aid, and the province has to push the.
Anyways.
Yeah, those are all important for sure. Just another, like a question.
And Lloyd has.
Lloyd, yes.
Oh,
please.
yeah, no, sorry, thanks. And I really appreciate this conversation. Couple of things. First of all, I was actually pleased to throw additional tree planting funds in our budget this past cycle in Clarington, because I saw the need for a lot of times the reforestation and regreening stuff gets left by the wayside. So I'm seeing more and more municipalities doing that now, which is great. With respect to like what our role should be, I think I work in communications professionally. I think leveraging AMO and other organizations like that to put pressure back on the province for these sorts of standards, I think really important. Furthermore, those standards are not just backed up by, conservation authorities and people of that ilk, but by Insurance Bureau of Canada, I was talking to some folks who invest in development, and they say there's absolutely no way they're investing in developers who don't hold to those standards. So there's not just climate pressure, there's also market pressure to do these things too. And I think that needs to be remembered when we're having this discussion. Like increasingly, it is the case that green standards in building are table stakes as opposed to nice to haves. And so I think it'd be we do well to remind AMO and others of that as well. Thanks.
Thank you.
Thank you. No, that's great. Just I highlighted a couple things here, couple questions. So, corridors are really important, nature corridors, and we had Kawartha naturally connected. Are we looking at something like that again?
It's a good question. I don't know if someone else wants to give input on that. I'm not entirely sure if that's something moving.
Because it was in here, so I went, oh, that's good.
Yep, so I think our general approach on that, and I'd have to remind it of the exact point, but our approach is get more trees on the landscape.
Yeah,
And if we can use existing.
protected zones, restoring degraded ecosystem, creating wildlife corridors.
Yeah, and so a key part then in the corridors is natural heritage.
Yeah.
So we did try and focus this a little bit on the hazards, but recognizing that if you can put trees in the best spot possible, then that's always a good thing. And so, you know, as a pass, certainly, looking at the Kawartha's Naturally Connected or the Provincial Natural Heritage System as options in an overlay for which ones, if you're oversubscribed in a particular year, that might make the difference.
It'd be great to get that back going somehow, you know? And just another question, Kawartha Lakes is looking at a tree preservation bylaw. So have you commented on our proposal?
did,
I
yeah.
can't remember. Okay, that's good.
Yeah,
Okay.
I know, I think the planning group spearheaded that. And so we commented on that in the tail end of the year, if I remember right. So,
Okay, good. Yeah, so I just.
Most of my comments were made during the introduction meeting, and then we followed up with the all grasses. So.
Rocky standards bylaw.
So also, Kriya's point, you know, reducing greenhouse gas emissions for climate action, right? So, you know, expansion of gas plants and that needs to, I don't know what we do with that, but it just seems kind of backwards thinking.
Yeah, I think of a whole subdivision of 400 houses, each with a gas furnace, when we have air source heat pumps. And I mean, maybe if you'll think that, okay, they need a hybrid system because there are points at which an air source heat pump may not work, but they're getting better and better.
Yeah, they're getting better.
Minus 40
And
Celsius. And I guess the argument would be that they can't afford to have, you know, gas and the air source, but it's at the point where it should be air source heat pump. And if it's minus 50, then I'll have to.
They have upgraded ones, but it says reducing greenhouse gas emissions, and then it says replacement of gas operated equipment, right? So it's right there.
yeah, and I think that was more on the internal corporate side.
Yeah.
So we have, for instance, our machines that cut grass and
Go
do other-
electric.
go electric.
Right.
Yeah.
And I was, just to reiterate, you know, a green team, it would be great if it was just, not just in-house, but further afield. Yeah. So, anyway, those are my comments. Peter,
It's off topic, but my comment is, why would you build 400 houses on farmland? Everywhere I look, it's prime farmland that's, and we can't even feed ourselves now. We import about 60–70% of the food into our country. I think it's very short-sighted to build subdivisions on farmland.
yeah, and there was quite a bit in here about farms and wetlands, and that's a big issue, not just farms, but just, you know, developers filling in wetlands. So, yeah, I think that's a big part we can play as a conservation authority. So, okay, any other comments or questions? It was a good report. I really enjoyed reading it, and I've got more comments, but I won't.
Thank you, I appreciate it.
Yeah, so, okay, so can we have a motion to adopt the 10-year climate change strategy?
I make more comments.
You may.
I wasn't going to, but as a former teacher, I just want to say how much I enjoyed listening to you present.
Oh, thank
I
you so
know that's
much.
not why we're here. So I won't.
Your mother would be proud.
Before it
I'm
gets silly,
sorry.
before it gets silly, it was slow,
Okay.
steady, articulate, and it was, and I'm always impressed at this conservation authority when people present, but I don't often hear you, and I just want to say.
Well, thank you, I
sometimes
appreciate
people walk
that.
away going,
I do my
"Wonder how I did
best."
it."
Yeah.
And it was just really nice to listen to.
Yeah.
Like, you might want to know.
Well, I respect all of you, so I want to bring respect and do my best, so always.
Good presentation.
Thank you.
Nate is one of those hidden gems in an organization. And so we wanted to make sure that he was properly profiled, and I was pleased that he volunteered to present on this, so.
Awesome. Right on. That's great.
Thank you, everyone.
Okay, so Eric, you want to make that motion? Okay, seconder, Tracy, any more comments? All in favor? Carried, great. But it'd be great to work together though with the other municipalities. It's just, yeah. So, okay, so any new business? I don't believe so. Do you have? Nope. Okay, updates from board members. Tracy, do you have anything? No, okay.
Just walk safely, like you don't have to go on the ice and just hit your shoulder, okay?
Oh, well, thank you for that. It's melting. Eric, anything to, how was Roma? Were there any, and I couldn't, anyway, were there any environmental
There was a lot.
issues brought up?
Oh, yeah, I think in pretty much every workshop, it's gonna be part of everything. Trying to think if there's anything applicable to this particular agenda. Kind of caught me off guard.
I'm sorry.
No, I don't mean it that way. I don't have anything
Okay.
in my head that jumps out. I don't know about you, in relation
Well,
to,
it was.
I mean, everything in a way, right?
Yeah.
And we all have the same, no matter how many different municipalities you speak to, we all have the same problems and issues,
Yeah.
right? So.
Can I say one thing about
sure.
Roma and the environment?
Sure.
That stood out for me because we had two battery storage proposals in front of us at Brock Township in this past fall as part of the IESOs, the Independent
Yeah.
Electricity Supply Operators. They had an RFP out, so all these proponents came, and we had two proponents, and they both came and they made deals with farmers directly under the grid on prime agricultural farmland. I've been on a land use task force. So I've had some background on this urgent need we have to upgrade our grid with everything being electrified. We really need to upgrade our grid, but across Ontario, municipalities didn't feel prepared to give these proponents sort of the first go ahead, which gives them more points at the IESO. Because mostly because of the use of having them situated on prime agricultural farmland. But it's really only a temporary use. In many cases, in our case, they were looking for 7 acres in one instance and 9 acres in another. It was difficult for planners to understand whether or not that's a permitted use of farmland, et cetera. And people were vastly confused. They thought it was a storage facility for used batteries beside Lake Simcoe, and it was going to leach in. So we have this tremendous need for them, and there were some municipalities at Roma who had passed and sort of given the first go ahead, and they wanted to know from the IESO, when they next year whether or not the IESO accepted that proponent's plan for a battery storage site. And there was a lot of frustration because in some cases, councils bowed to, pressure from the residents and said no. And so we didn't really get, as a province, too much further ahead in really beefing up the grid as we need to. So I found that part at Roma really interesting. And the next time that the IESO comes out with these RPS, they're going to make sure that all the ministries get on board, including, OMAFRA, Ministry of Agriculture, to sort of to help with these land use questions and to meet some of the fire concerns, et cetera, that people have. And it was really confusing for municipalities to understand why private enterprise was coming to municipalities asking for an endorsement.
Mhm.
And that's how the Ministry of Energy, when it created the IESO, that was in the Harris years, to create more competition. So it was a good thing, but it was very confusing for residents and for municipalities, and yet it's such an urgent.
And it's so new.
It's so
And
new.
there's just we had one come to our council and there just wasn't enough information because it's so new. Yeah.
And I mean, basically, the grid is using more and more gas, like, I don't know, 17 hours a day in Toronto last year, natural gas to support the grid. So our grid is not clean. It's a gas, you know, I mean, other grids in various places can be cleaner. So it was just to me, that was a highlight of Roma, was sort of having big discussions on
Interesting.
I'd love to chime in here if I may, sorry.
Absolutely.
I'm really glad you raised that, because that process, that IESO process is really flawed. Because I think, and we had the same thing, we had a couple of companies depute to Clarington as well. And it really does put the cart before the horse. I mean, like forcing, I can imagine too, undertake, like, from a business perspective, making businesses site out properties just so that they can propose to be part of a you know, with no guarantee of return on that, it seems like counterintuitive to me, for one thing. And secondly, like, yeah, some of the companies that were proposing to build on ORM, for example, didn't understand, like, there was no clarity around, from a regulatory perspective, on whether or not that was justifiable use. I mean, the ORM states that you can put necessary infrastructure on ORM lands, but, like, is that necessary infrastructure on, you know, and given the state of the grid, I would agree, I think it is, but that there needs to be some clarity around that rule. So from tip to tail, this was a really strange process from a council perspective. And the final thing I'll say is, because the companies were trying to be competitive, they were locating on green space or on green land or on primary agricultural land, because they didn't want to be, didn't necessarily want to be investing in infill. So that's the other challenge, right? Like, there are probably infill locations for those kinds of facilities that would be appropriate, but because of the process, they weren't weighted towards that. So the whole thing is really unfortunate and needs further thought.
Yeah, we turned down one, and it was right next to a solar farm. So it kind of made sense, but there was just not enough information for people, you know, councillors to make that decision. But it's something that needs to be looked at for sure. And just on that, before I forget, I did bring this up, that there are 75% dollars for EV charging stations, and I'm wondering if Kawartha Conservation has applied. Got till the end of the month. I brought it up a couple times.
Yep, I know John's taken a look at some of that, so.
Yeah, we took a brief look. We haven't applied as at this moment, but I can definitely go take a look. I know the region also sent out some correspondence regarding a program, and they had selected a vendor that others were able to ride on for pricing. So I have to further explore that.
I think Flow is really good. The one in Bobcaygeon is Flow. And if you need any help, we have a great gal who did the Flow in Bobcaygeon, the EV charging station. So if you need help with that, just let me know, because it'd be really unfortunate if we've got any money, and maybe not now, but you know, I don't know, actually. I think it's about 100 grand. So that would be, we're throwing away 75,000 for an EV charging station here. So it might be something to look at. You've got a few days left.
Good luck.
Okay, thank you. Okay, so Peter, do you have anything to add?
Oh, just that we finally set up our environmental committee again, advisory committee.
That's great.
Yeah, they collapsed about 13 years ago.
I remember that.
Yeah.
Yeah. So
and actually, the mayor that collapsed that asked to be on the environmental committee.
That's interesting, isn't it? Yeah. Okay. Harold, congratulations as vice chair. Do you have anything to add?
I don't know, not too much. What's happening in Scugog, we have Scugog has a new outdoor arena they put in this year for skating, so right down by the waterfront there.
Nice.
Which we'll find out next week whether that's going to get changed or not. The LSAP project's coming back in this rework form on Monday to be presented again to council. So we'll see how we go with that this time.
Great. Okay. Priya,
No, I did my part.
you did, I've said enough
I
too,
just
so
jumped in.
there you go. Okay. We have no,
And Lloyd, I'm not sure if he has.
oh, sorry, Lloyd, do you have anything to add?
Nope, it's all good.
Nope, it's all good. Okay, so we don't have any closed and the motion to adjourn. Okay, Tracy. Priya, all in favor, carried. Thanks a lot, everybody. That's good. Yeah,
Thanks so much, everyone.
yeah.
Thank you.
Nice to see you.
Yes.
Yeah. I'm taller in person, so you'll see that for real soon. Thanks.
Good, great.
But the hybrid worked well.
Yes.
Yeah.
It did, because, you know, if somebody's not well or whatever.